Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of PEM Rules, the Pediatric Emergency Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Yaron Ivan, as usual, and today we have some important rules that I use when I speak to my consultants. I've already discussed several rules that help me communicate better with my consultants. Rule number 53 from episode 11, give your consultants a good story, present like a medical student, chief complaint, HPI, your assessment, your plan, etc., even if they don't ask for it. Rule number 54 was set up your consultants for success. Give the parent a good word about them. For example, something like, Mom and Dad, little Johnny has appendicitis. I have already called our pediatric surgeons. They are excellent. They're going to take great care of you. Likely, Johnny is going to be home tomorrow. The following rules are some other rules that I use when communicating to my consultants directly. Rule number 120. Use the consultant as a resource. So one of the things that I like to keep in mind is you have to know what you don't know. I'm a medical provider. I'm not a surgeon. I'm also, as a pediatric emergency physician, a jack of all trades. I know a little bit about many things, but I'm not a specialist of any body system or any specific condition or disease. So I think it's very helpful to use the consultant as a resource. Oftentimes, when I consult them, I ask about specific complications the patient is at risk for given what disease or condition they have. I also use them as a resource to get a better history on my patient. So despite the EMR, despite the fact that I may have a parent who is a very good historian, oftentimes the consultants know the patient best and they can say something like, oh, Yaron, this patient actually has had complication X several times. Why don't you, in addition to what you did, check for so-and-so? Specifically with regard to surgical consultants, again, given that I'm not a surgeon, I think it's very helpful to use them as a resource. So I often discuss with them something like the pediatric appendicitis score, what is their experience with the utility of such a tool, etc. Obviously, the consultants are a great tool to specifically discuss specific treatments and management of patients. Again, I'm a jack of all trades. I know what to do most of the time for most presentations and most complications, but certain patients, as we say, did not read the textbook, have a very unusual presentation or unusual disease that I don't see very often, and using the consultant as a tool for the best management can go a very long way for the sake of your patients and for the sake of your knowledge. This rule is also very helpful specifically with working with trainees. So again, I try to teach my trainees as much as I can, but oftentimes the surgeon, specifically about that surgical presentation, can be a great resource and a great educator for the residents to learn more for next time. Rule number 121. Make your consultant's life easy. So not too long ago, I saw a 5-year-old who came to the pediatric emergency department with the chief complaint of seizures. As always, I asked Mom, who is the child's neurologist, and she mentioned one of the neurologists that works in our hospital, whom I know very well, but unfortunately, on that day, he was not the person on call. Given that the child has quite a significant neurological history with a fair amount of office visits, I think it's the benefit of the patient for the PEM physician to look through them, to look through the EMR to the best you can, especially the last office visit. And when you speak to the neurologist on call, give them as much information as possible. Make their life easy. Although they are neurologists, they may have never seen this patient before. Going through the office visits, especially in a good EMR, which you're familiar with, doesn't take a whole lot of time, and it can make your consultant's life easy and lead to better patient care. In other words, make their life easy. So for this patient, the neurologist had a very specific plan delineated in the last office visit with regards to the possibility of the child presenting to the emergency department again. It involved checking the dose, checking the milligram per kilogram, and giving another medication if the patient has been tolerating the medications and the milligram per kilograms are within the range, or adding medication X if the patient is taking the appropriate milligram per kilogram and the medication does not seem to work. Reading that plan made my neurologist consultant, who did not know the patient, very happy, made his life easy, and helped me give a better patient care for this patient. So make your consultant's life easy, look through the EMR, give them a good story, and understand that the person who's answering your phone may not know the patient at all. And although he or she are a neurologist or a subspecialist, they're not going to help you very much if they know nothing about the patient. It serves your interest to make their life easier by looking through the EMR, giving them a good story, and make them familiar with the patient. Rule number 122. Speak the consultant's language. So, different consultants obviously have different things they worry about based on their medical experience or surgical experience. Some consultants are surgeons, some consultants are medical physicians like myself, and I think it's very helpful to often speak their language. So when I speak to the orthopedic surgeon, I use the orthopedic terms that they are familiar with and they use in their everyday life. Again, that leads to better communication and possibly better patient care. When I speak to the surgeon about possible appendicitis, I talk about the pediatric appendicitis score, which I always do. It's a tool that they like and appreciate and familiar with. I talk about obturator and psoas sign on my physical exam because I know that is something they're familiar with and always check for. So I think it's very important to speak the consultant's language. Again, that probably leads to better communication, better patient care, and just better overall experience for everybody. Another good example, which we often discuss in academic medicine, is when you speak to the dermatologist and describe the rash that you're seeing in front of your face, speaking in dermatological terms such as papule versus vesicle versus macule, discussing findings such as blenching or not blenching with pressure, petechia, purpura, or just hives, is very helpful and can help the dermatologist understand what you're seeing in front of your face. Certainly in the era of EMR, when you can upload pictures, that can help as well. But again, when you speak to the consultants, I think it's very helpful to speak their language. Discuss what they are most likely be worried about given the patient presentation. Use terms and physical exam findings that they often use in their exam. Use the term that they use in their medical language. And again, make their life easy. That can lead to better patient care, will make your life easier, and will make your patient hopefully have a better outcome. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Let's review what we learned today. Rule number 120. Use the consultant as a resource. Ask them the questions that you're worried about. Ask about the complications the patient may have had in the past or is at risk for in the future. Use them as someone who's knowledgeable about that specific patient or that specific body system so you can learn for the future. Rule number 121, make your consultant's life easy. Read about the patient, look through the EMR, discuss the last office visit, understanding that the consultant you're speaking to may be very knowledgeable but does not know this patient very well. It often helps them a lot to know what their specific consultant has said about their patient in their last office visit or their last ED visit. Rule number 122, speak the consultant's language. If it's a surgical patient and there's some kind of a surgical score your consultants often use, make sure you mention that. Specific terms that the consultant use in orthopedics, for example, can be very helpful. When you present something like a rash to the dermatologist, make sure you speak their language. Again, that hopefully leads to better communication that will hopefully lead to better patient care. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you again for listening. Please check out pemrules.com. Look at the homepage and see how you can contribute to our educational project. You can also check out EP Monthly for the pediatric section to read more about the rules and my philosophy. The following outro is a very special song that is dedicated to a very special person without whom this podcast and many other things in my life would not be possible. I can't play it very well, but I can make it sound okay. Hope you like it.